I'll tell you what the best Pokemon game is for your very first Nuzlocke. Let's get right into it. Hey, I'm Des. I stream a lot of Pokemon content over on Twitch, so check me out over there if you want. Today, I'll be going over some of the best games for you to start your first Pokemon Nuzlocke run. If you don't know what a Nuzlocke is just yet, check out this video in the top right of my good friend Ryo explaining you the basics of what a Nuzlocke challenge is. I'll wait for you to come back. Oh, you're back. Awesome. Let's continue. So, for your first Nuzlocke, there are a couple of games that would work very well for various reasons, and I'll discuss them now in chronological order. First off, we're skipping over Generation 1 and 2 because they're very old and have quite outdated mechanics. For Generation 3, I'd recommend starting with Pokemon Fire Red or Leaf Green. If you're looking to be nostalgic over Pokemon but want to give yourself an extra little challenge, Nuzlocke these two games. They have that big nostalgia factor, but still have nice mechanics, updated movesets, a good difficulty curve, and they're overall very doable as a Nuzlocke. Some gym fights might get a little tricky, but if you know your type advantages, you should be fine. Do watch out for a couple of rival fights and some Giovanni fights, because they might give you a little bit of a run for your money. All in all, these are perfect games for your first Nuzlocke. For Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald goes that they have a good variety of encounters, but they are a little bit harder. So if you are a more experienced, casual Pokemon player, you can take a shot at this for your first Nuzlocke as well. It's just a little bit harder than Fire Red and Leaf Green. In Generation 4, I'd only really recommend Heart Gold and Soul Silver if you have a soft spot for the Johto region. The main problem with these games is that the level curve is totally broken, the mid game is all over the place, and the grind for the Elite Four can be insane because you can only really train on low-level wild Pokemon. Other than that, the games are quite easy and should make for a good first Nuzlocke. I wouldn't recommend Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum because they are quite slow-paced games. Platinum fixes that a little bit, but they're still too slow for my liking. If you want a little bit more of a modern-day Pokemon experience, but not 3D modern, go for Black and White in Generation 5. The games can be difficult at times, but should be completable by a casual player trying their first Nuzlocke. Generation 5 is well renowned in the Pokemon community for being lots of people's favorite Pokemon generation. So take away from that what you will. I'd say stay away from Black and White 2 because they're just a step up and too hard really for your first Nuzlocke. If you like the 3D style of Pokemon and want to have a modern day Pokemon Nuzlocke experience, I would recommend Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. These remakes of the Gen 3 games make for quite a nice Nuzlocking experience. Omega Ruby was my first Nuzlocke that I tried about a year ago over on my Twitch channel, link in description, and I thoroughly enjoyed playing through it and completed in one attempt too, without too many deaths. What I can say about Auras is that they're mostly just updated, improved, and a little bit easier versions of Ruby and Sapphire, so kind of what they're supposed to be. I personally don't have too much experience with Generation 7, so I can't really have an opinion on this, but from my research I've seen that Ultra Sun and Moon are a big no-no for your first Nuzlocke, simply because the games are just too hard. Sun and Moon are okay, but there are better options out there. Lastly, in Gen 8 we have Sword and Shield, which aren't the greatest Nuzlocke experiences. The Dynamaxing, the Wild Area, the Gigantamaxing make for very weird mechanics for a Nuzlocke. Technically they're fine to Nuzlocke, but if you want a more straightforward Nuzlocke experience, you just go for some of the earlier options I gave you. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are for the most part super easy to Nuzlocke. The only huge problem with it, and the reason why I don't recommend them as your first Nuzlocke, is that this difficulty spike from the whole game and then to Elite Four and Cynthia is insane. They use EV trained Pokemon with full IVs, competitive movesets, and competitive items, and that is just insane for like a casual doing your first Nuzlocke. Don't try that. Even my casual playthrough had a very difficult time beating Cynthia, so maybe stay away from these for your first Nuzlocke. As a final tip, and the one you're probably going to hate me for the most, is this. Don't listen to anything I've said today. Play the game that you like best. The game that you've sunk in the most hours into. Because most likely, you'll know that game the best. And game knowledge is one of the most important things for a Nuzlocke. So this is probably the best advice I can give you for your first Nuzlocke. Let me know what game you are going to be Nuzlocking next in the comments below. And check out this video right here that gives you some really useful tips to get a head start on your next Pokemon Nuzlocke adventure. I use these tips myself to become a better Nuzlocker too. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.